Breaking news tonight on the race to vaccinate the youngest children against COVID. Pfizer requesting FDA authorization for a two-shot regimen for kids under 5 while it examines the protection from a third shot. When could shots go into kids' arms? Also tonight, 2 officers fatally shot on a Virginia college campus. The suspect in custody tonight. What we're learning. The wave of bomb threats to historically black colleges on the first day of Black History Month. The FBI investigation. The major winter storm on the move. 85 million on alert over a 2,000-mile stretch from New Mexico to Vermont. We're tracking it. The inferno at a fertilizer plant. Thousands evacuating. The fear of an explosion tonight. Vladimir Putin breaking weeks of silence on the Ukraine crisis, what he's accusing the U.S. and its allies of doing. Our NBC News exclusive with FBI Director Christopher Wray, the country he calls the biggest threat to U.S. economic security. Our other exclusive, which books are being banned in record numbers at Texas school libraries.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening, everyone. The effort to offer COVID vaccinations to virtually all Americans, including the youngest among us, is close tonight. Pfizer confirming late today it has started down the road of seeking emergency use authorization for its vaccine for children 6 months to 5 years who are currently ineligible. Child cases stood last week at over 800,000. That's less than the previous week, but still extremely high. Pfizer for now calling for 2 lower dose shots for the youngest group. If approved, the first injections could begin within weeks. But the news comes with a nagging dose of reality. Reluctance among many parents to have their kids vaccinated. Tom Costello now with late details.
With 3.5 million new pediatric COVID cases in January alone, the potential that shots could be going into very young arms within a month is welcome news for millions of parents.
Every day I'm worried about them contracting COVID. I would say that we're very cautious.
In Maryland, the Cross family has 3 kids, 2 under the age of 5.
As a working parent, I want them vaccinated so that we are not dealing with this child care gap of constantly having to have our kids out of school and daycare.
Pfizer today requesting emergency FDA authorization for a 2-shot vaccine dose at 1/10 the adult dose for kids 6 months to 5 years, as it continues researching whether a third dose provides even more protection. Children typically receive 16 vaccinations from birth to 18 years, but many parents are hesitant to add another. A new COVID vaccine study finds just 31% of parents say they'd vaccinate kids under 5 right away. 29% will wait to see how other kids react. 26% will not vaccinate their youngest kids. 12% will only do so if the school requires it. Dr. Paul Offit is on the FDA's outside vaccine committee that evaluates safety.
We all want to see the data. And we would not approve this vaccine unless we could imagine giving it to our own children or our own grandchildren. I think the American public can be reassured by that.
Today, the American Academy of Pediatrics weighed in, saying it's important that all children can benefit from the protection that the vaccine offers.
The fact is, even if they don't get hospitalized or worse, they have to miss school, their families have to miss school. It's a major work burden. It ends up isolating the whole family, and it's an educational loss for a lot of kiddos.
And Tom, it sounds like in this case, the FDA asked Pfizer to submit the request for authorization. I suppose that suggests this is very urgent.
Yeah, that's right. It wants to consider a 2-dose regimen to get the ball rolling on building immunity before that third dose is approved. So far, there have been no serious side effects reported in kids 5 to 11 who've been vaccinated, but fewer than 20% in that age group are vaccinated. Lester?
All right, Tom Costello, thank you. Let's turn now to a violent day on school campuses across the country. In Bridgewater, Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley, a deadly shooting on a college campus in that small town. Authorities say 2 campus police officers were shot and killed at Bridgewater College. The college president said the officers were close friends and known on campus as the dynamic duo. Police have arrested a suspect. Also breaking tonight, another deadly school shooting, this one in Richfield, Minnesota, near Minneapolis. Authorities say 2 students were shot on the sidewalk outside the school. One is in critical condition. One died. Police are searching for the suspects. And tonight, federal authorities are investigating bomb threats made at more than a dozen historically black colleges and universities. Here's Ron Allen.
Tonight, many of the nation's historically black colleges and universities on heightened alert, from Delaware to Florida to Louisiana. Hours with campuses locked down, orders to shelter in place because of more than a dozen bomb threats.
Sad that it's really only HBCUs that are being targeted.
At Howard University, bomb threats 2 days in a row, the third threat since January 5th. You take these threats seriously?
Absolutely.
Like many at these institutions, Dr. Toshni Ann DuBroy thinks the fact that it's the start of Black History Month is likely no coincidence.
A month that usually celebrates the innovation of our community and celebrates the valor of black people has now been tainted because we have such a significant threat against our HBCU community.
At the White House, aides say the president is getting regular updates.
It is scary. It is horrifying. It is terrible that these students, these faculty, these institutions are feeling under threat.
The FBI saying they're working with our law enforcement partners to address any potential threats. For now, students like Ashley Fields are back in class with a lot of questions.
We've not received any word about whether the two have been connected or, where the threat has come from. It's not the ideal environment for students trying to learn.
On Howard's campus now, a much bigger police presence, including help from the D.C. Metro Police, not usually stationed here. So far, authorities have not reported finding any explosive devices on any campus. Lester?
Ron Allen, thank you for that update. Tonight, a massive new storm is prompting winter alerts over a 2,000-mile stretch from New Mexico to New England. Dylan Dreyer is here. Dylan, what are we expecting?
Well, we are expecting a lot of snow and a lot of ice right through the middle of the country where those warnings and watches are in effect. For right now, it's mostly just rain, but the moisture is streaming in from the Gulf of Mexico, and we have a cold front that's going to drag down the cold air. So where it is raining, areas like St. Louis, they will change over to ice and then eventually snow. But look at from Little Rock through Louisville up through Pittsburgh, we could see as much as 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch of ice. It makes things treacherous on the roads and also is likely to cause significant power outages when it hangs onto the trees and power lines. We're also looking, especially across northern Indiana, some areas picking up about 12 to 18 inches of snow. And then, Lester, it gets really, really cold on the backside of this. So power outages and the cold temperatures, once again, will be a huge concern.
That's quite an impact zone. All right, Dylan, thank you. A raging fire to tell you about now at a fertilizer plant in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It forced thousands of people to evacuate because of the danger of an explosion. Firefighters tried to control it, but were forced to retreat with 600 tons of ammonium nitrate at the site. Authorities said the danger would continue through tomorrow. No sign tonight Russia intends to pull back its military buildup threatening Ukraine. President Vladimir Putin insisting it's the U.S. that's trying to start war over Ukraine. But he's not ruling out a diplomatic solution. Richard Engel is in Ukraine.
In a widely socially distanced joint statement with the Prime Minister of Hungary, Russian President Vladimir Putin broke weeks of silence on Ukraine and for the first time responded to written diplomatic proposals from the U.S. and NATO. Russia's concerns were basically ignored, Putin said. He laid out his security demands, unchanged even after weeks of negotiations with the U.S. Non-expansion of NATO, no offensive weapons by Russia's borders, he said. Putin never mentioned the 130,000 Russian troops mobilized on Ukraine's borders, including tanks, warships, missiles, and even fresh blood supplies. Instead, the Russian president talked about Crimea. Russia seized and annexed it from Ukraine in 2014. Putin says if Ukraine joins NATO, Ukraine would try to recapture Crimea, triggering a full-blown war between NATO and Russia. So Putin's arguing that what he's doing now is in the interest of world peace.
President Putin did leave open the door for diplomacy. He said he hopes to have further discussions in the coming weeks. But it's clear that Putin is sticking to his core demand that Ukraine never be allowed to join NATO. The implied threat? All those troops that were never mentioned. Lester?
Richard Engel, thank you. As the Olympics get underway in Beijing, FBI Director Christopher Wray is speaking out exclusively to NBC News about the scope of China's spying on American soil. It's become so widespread that his agents open an average of 2 investigations a day. Wray spoke about it with Pete Williams.
An East Bay tour operator is facing charges tonight of spying for China.
The FBI was tailing him around.
The FBI says this is Chinese spying at work. Edward Peng leaving an envelope of cash in a California hotel room and retrieving an SD card loaded with classified information. A classic spycraft dead drop. He's now in federal prison.
The creation of those counterintelligence task forces.
Christopher Wray says when he became FBI director, the sheer amount of Chinese spying to steal American technology was a huge surprise.
This one blew me away. And I'm not the kind of guy that uses words like blown away easily. We are investigating, opening a new China-related counterintelligence investigation. About every 12 hours, we probably have over 2,000 of those investigations.
Other countries spy on each other. So what does China do that's different?
There is no country that presents a broader, more severe threat to our innovation, our ideas, and our economic security than China does. I'm referring not to the Chinese people, not to people of Chinese descent or heritage. What we're talking about here is the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party.
The Chinese government has repeatedly insisted that it doesn't steal American business secrets. But the FBI says Chinese spies target a range of American innovations on COVID vaccines, computer chips, nuclear power plants, jet engines, and smartphones, for example, sometimes by planting company insiders, sometimes through its world-leading cyber theft.
The scale of their hacking program and the amount of personal and corporate data that their hackers have stolen is greater than every other country combined.
And Wray says the Chinese government exports elements of its oppressive police state, sending teams to the U.S. to threaten and intimidate critics.
China may be the first country to combine that kind of authoritarian ambition with cutting-edge technical capability. It's like the surveillance nightmare of East Germany combined with the tech of Silicon Valley.
But what about the criticism from Asian American groups who say the Justice Department's China initiative has overreached, with some Chinese espionage cases collapsing?
We don't investigate anyone based on race or ethnicity or constitutionally protected activity. In fact, in many cases, Chinese Americans are some of the people most victimized by the Chinese government's tactics that we're describing.
Wray also accuses China of going after secrets in other countries, but he says the U.S. is its #1 target. Lester?
Fascinating interview, Pete. Thank you. In just 60 seconds, banning books in school libraries under pressure by parents and politicians, our exclusive investigation. Back now with our NBC News exclusive on the growing effort to ban books from some school libraries. Certain titles disappearing from the shelves in Texas in record numbers. Here's Antonia Hilton.
Iris Chang remembers the first time she saw herself in a book. It was The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan.
So it was really compelling to see this accurate portrayal of what my culture looks like and what I, as a person, represent.
Iris, who identifies as queer, always loved learning about the world from her hometown of Katy, Texas, until this fall, when her district started banning books.
I think students of color and queer students are especially taking this hard.
An NBC News investigation found that the Katy Independent School District is one of at least a dozen Texas districts that have removed books about race, gender, and sexual identity after a statewide surge of parent complaints.
Why are we sexualizing our precious children?
Record requests to nearly 100 Texas districts found that during the first 4 months of this school year, parents made at least 75 formal complaints, compared to only 1 filed during the same period last year.
It's about a whole array of books, and it's about LGBTQ students in particular, or students of color in particular.
Retired librarian Carolyn Foote says she's never seen anything like this. One Katy parent even asked the district to remove a biography of Michelle Obama, arguing the book promotes reverse racism. The district denied the request. Texas Governor Greg Abbott called for criminal charges against staff who provide kids with pornographic books.
Do librarians feel safe in their jobs right now?
In some cases, librarians are being asked to do things that really are against their code of ethics, and that makes them fearful to speak up.
One of the banned books Carolyn loves is George Johnson's memoir about their Black queer childhood, which includes a brief passage about sexual abuse George experienced as a child. In January, Katy schools declared it not appropriate for any level.
They can remove our books, but they can't remove our stories.
What do you make of the fact that people have used the words pornographic and vulgar?
They don't want their students reading about queer people. My book is not being put out there to excite students about sex.
This is what boys like to do.
At a November school board meeting, a Katy parent read from George's book.
I don't want to spend my money on this filth, and it's in our libraries.
Mary Ellen Cuzella has 3 kids in Katy schools and helped organize moms on this issue.
What we're talking about is vulgarity that is inappropriate for any child. I don't care what your ideology is, and your child is precious and needs to be guarded.
More than half of the books that Katy has removed as a result of all of this have main characters who are LGBTQ. Are people supposed to believe that's just a coincidence?
No, I don't think so. I think they should read the books themselves.
Katy schools declined NBC News' request for an interview. Iris, a member of her school's speech and debate team, is no stranger to speaking her mind.
I honestly think that they want to keep their children in this protected bubble in which the only opinions they really hear are the ones that they themselves represent.
And she feels too many adults aren't listening. Antonia Hilton, NBC News, Katy, Texas.
We're back with more right after this. The NFL has been hit with an explosive lawsuit. Former head coach Brian Flores is suing the league along with the Dolphins, Giants, and Broncos for racial discrimination. Flores, who was fired by the Dolphins last month, alleges discriminatory hiring practices against black coaches and personnel. The teams have denied the allegations, and the NFL said, quote, "We will defend against these claims, which are without merit." That's nightly news for this Tuesday. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.